Hi, Scorpio. Welcome to your June 2018 Astro Update. It's Rena here, and I am redoing this horoscope forecast because I left out the full moon in Capricorn. I actually am redoing it twice. After I posted the original, I just did the other one, and I said the same thing at the end. I said it was a full moon in Sagittarius, and that's happening in the future for me, not at the end of June. So anyway, as the month begins, the sun is in the house that you rule, and that's the 8th house, Scorpio. So anything that has to do with 8th house matters. One of the biggies is shared resources. Could be coming up for you, could be something that you're really absorbed with in June, at least the first few weeks of the month with the sun there. So Mercury is also going to be there with the sun in that 8th house. And Mercury can deal with contracts. So if there's any kind of inheritance issues that you're going over, there may be some kind of papers that you have to sign, or maybe documents that you are researching, because Mercury can involve research in that 8th house for sure. And that could be that you're uncovering some paper trail that relates to a deceased loved one. Perhaps it is the father. Now, understand that this would be something that you already are aware of. So if you're listening in May, it's not something that's just going to suddenly happen. This is probably an ongoing saga in some way, because usually it does take a while for these probate matters to get sorted out. The 8th house is also dealing with the occult. So there may be some Scorpios who are delving or diving deep into studying the tarot or astrology or other occult topics. Occult simply means hidden. You know, they give such an ominous meaning to occult, and it simply means hidden knowledge. And you may be quite fascinated by that, and maybe even there's some kind of organized course of study that you're taking regarding some issue that's connected with the occult. But you could be busy doing that. You could be communicating at a very deep level with someone or people that you care about. Maybe you're bearing your soul for the first time. And it is quite interesting, because I always think of Scorpio people as the kind of people who they can get other people to talk about everything under the sun and reveal themselves. And the Scorpio person is sitting there and they don't reveal anything about themselves, but they're hearing everybody else's deep, dark secrets. So maybe this is the time when you're finally going to be unloading some of those things, to somebody that you care about. And then on the 12th, Mercury goes into the 9th house, which can also deal with spiritual issues in a different way. So the 8th house, I said, is the occult. And there's that kind of intuitive connection. The 9th house is about prophecy. It's ruled by Sagittarius. But there's kind of like more of a broad sense of seeing the bigger picture, and also religion as it is organized in sex. Now, when I say sex, I'm spelling it S-E-C-T-S. So it's like the joy of sex versus the joy of sex in the 8th house, which is S-E-X, because that is one of the buzzwords of the 8th house. So you may be kind of putting all these spiritual issues together, whether it's in terms of organized religion or metaphysics, and seeing how everything kind of shakes out, because you may be like, maybe you're going into some kind of career that involves the intuitive arts, and you're trying to kind of figure out what you believe, what's your place in all of this. The 9th house can even be like your personal life philosophy and what your definition is of the meaning of life. And if, let's say you want to become a yoga teacher, this can be very important because you realize that it's not just about improving one's health, physical health, improving the way the body looks, but also the spiritual component. And so you may be sorting all of that out in some way. But the ninth house also deals with intellectual pursuits, the sophisticated learning or higher learning of a university or some related type of study that is at a more advanced level. And when Mercury goes into that ninth house, it's not just about using your brain and thinking and learning, but you may be signing contracts. So you may get the loans, which is the eighth house, money that you didn't earn, to use for your college in the ninth house. And it can relate to perhaps traveling long distances. So maybe you're getting your passport ready, some legal documents that you're going to need when you travel. And this is because in July, there's actually going to be a solar eclipse in this ninth house. And because it is this house of foreign travel expansion, some of you at least, may be contemplating a move far away, and you're getting your ducks lined up in a row in June to prepare for this trip. And so you may be getting all of your traveling stuff and just, or even traveling because Venus will be in this ninth house until the 13th of June. And Venus can indicate that perhaps you're already in this foreign country and you have fallen in love with somebody of a different ethnicity, a different nationality. And then Venus goes into the 10th house on the 13th, and that is your career sector. So it is possible, based upon some of these transits, that some of you are going to be moving far away for career purposes. And I'm not saying this would happen in June. It could happen at some time in the next couple of months or so. And so that can be very exciting because Venus in the 10th house can confer popularity on you. It can also bring money to you in some way, maybe in the form of some kind of a promotion or a raise. And you can, maybe if you're like getting a new job or you've switched careers, you find that you resonate with it much better. Maybe you were in a career that felt like it didn't fit you properly and there was a lot of tension, a lot of conflict as a result. So that can be very helpful. On the same day, we have that new moon in Gemini, and that is going to be in the 8th house. So there may be developments in regards to an estate, a will situation. There may be opportunities for you in the area of metaphysics, in the area of money that you don't earn, perhaps even like if you have a partner, they may get a raise, they may have a new source of revenue, and by connection with that person, you are influenced in some way. If you're starting a job, you may start a job in the area of finance that deals with other people's money, like accounting and banking. On the 18th, there is a Neptune retrograde occurring in your 5th house of romance and creativity. So if you've been dating someone, you may have the curtain pulled back and see that person as they really are. And maybe they have been misrepresenting themselves in some way. It's possible, Scorpio, that if you've been dating and haven't really had a committed relationship in the last several years, that you keep running across people like this because you've had Neptune in this fifth house for several years now. I don't know if it was 2011, 2012, somewhere along that timeline. And actually, I looked it up, and it was February of 2012. So think back to then. Obviously, this will depend upon the individual because of your degree of sun or rising Scorpio. And this can indicate that you may find your soulmate. So it's not like it's all bad, this influence. It's simply that Neptune can deal with illusion and, like fantasy or confusion. It can indicate in the fifth house that you attract partners who have addictions, have mental illness, or something that we associate with Neptune. However, on your end of things, you may simply romanticize partners too much. So it might be like you have this, I always say like the beer goggles on when it comes to love for the next 13 years. So this will be until 2025, just 7 more years, Scorpio, nothing to worry about. But actually, as I say, there's 2 sides to that coin. And the fact that Scorpio is harmonious with Pisces, it could turn out very nicely for you, where you find a partner who shares your spiritual gifts, and also if you are on a spiritual path that has that. And that's so wonderful when you feel like you are a spiritual person, to find somebody who you resonate with on that level. And this could also relate to any kind of creative project that you have. Maybe you have been pouring your energy into something and you realize now that you're on the wrong track. So whether you scrap the project or you just are going to alter it in a major way, it all depends. So the sun does go into Cancer on the solstice day of the 21st, and this is your 9th house. Again, the expansive house. This is a friendly angle to you, the sun in a fellow water sign of Cancer. So you should start feeling a greater flow with the sun at a nice angle to you. And again, in that house of expansion, that positivity that the sun being in that house represents, and also the matters that concern the 9th house, the God house, spirituality, long distance travel, teaching and learning at university level, and publishing. This is important. On the 26th, Mars is retrograding in Aquarius, and it will eventually go back into Capricorn at some point. The transit, the retrograde, is going to take place for 2 months until August 27th, and this will affect your 4th house and then your 3rd house. So the 4th house is the house of home and family, Aquarius. So what's interesting about this is that you may retrace your steps. Maybe you go home and live in your hometown for a while. This may also indicate that you are going to have some work redone on your house. Maybe you had an addition done and they didn't do something properly, and now they have to go back and do it. This may be a process that is a bit testing of your patience, because when Mars goes retrograde, things seem to slow down, and you may be kind of impatient to get something taken care of, and it takes a lot longer than you expect because, even if they're just redoing something, it could take longer. But this could also relate to some conflict getting reopened with family. And in the fourth house, it could specifically be the mother. Sometimes they say the fourth house is the father. God only knows why, because the fourth house is Cancer and the 10th house is Capricorn. So it seems like it would go along the line of mother for the fourth house. And so some kind of conflict reopening, and then the third house is your siblings, and that comes later on. So you could have a bit of a war going on. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to get in the fray. You can be above the fray and eat popcorn and watch them duke it out. Again, look at how I started this reading. I mentioned something about a will. So perhaps this is what this pertains to. And, it's amazing how people lower themselves at this, during this type of situation. And you don't have to go there. You can remain high. You can take the high road. But that might not mean that you will avoid having to deal with this conflict, however, because another thing to note is that on the day of the full moon, which is on the 28th of June, this is occurring in Capricorn. Capricorn is your third house. And that is the house of the siblings. And it can be your local area. It can be teaching and learning. And so you may be ending some kind of study in that regard. But it can be your siblings. It can be cousins too. But if it's some kind of a will, it probably would be more likely your siblings. And that can be a time when you end contact with a sibling, or maybe several of them. And it might be because of some kind of argument. So again, this too shall pass. It might be that this is a challenging period for you in terms of your family of origin, Scorpio, but forewarned is forearmed, and it won't hit you by surprise if you find out about it now, will it? So in any case, the third house can also be an area of the internet, and you may be finishing some kind of project that maybe you have been creating a website or something like that, and you're finished doing that. Connected to that Neptune in Pisces in retrograde, you may find out something about someone you have been dealing with online. And it seems like this is not unusual, that people may be dating and then they happen to see somebody's Facebook page or other social media, and they find out a few little choice details that that person conveniently forgot to tell them. So I don't know if any of these things will happen to you, Scorpio, but I hope that you enjoyed this. And just to let you know that these types of readings that you hear from me that relate to astrology, I do in private readings using your natal chart, which is based on your time of birth. And if you are intrigued by that kind of a reading, please check me out. I have a link below to the natal chart interpretation reading that I do, which is basically looking at your personality traits and other patterns that may help or hinder you in life, and combining that with this kind of a transit scenario, but for the next 12 months. That's not a day-to-day kind of a thing, but it's looking at the bigger picture and some of the important periods of time for you. I hope that you have a wonderful June. Scorpio, take care. Bye.